Well, hello and welcome to a new video. We are going to take a look at the performance of the Nvidia RTX A1000 in the 3D benchmarks Steel Nomad, and afterwards we're going to look at Time Spy as well. And this one is inside the Dell Precision 5470, which means that we have 32 GB of system memory, as well as an i7-12800H CPU in here. And the GPU, to my knowledge, is somewhere kept at around 35 watts. I think it is the 35 watt as compared to 40 watts, which would be the 15-inch model. All right, and we're already seeing quite the struggle from the card here. But you can see that, yeah, we're between the 35 and 40 watts here, while our CPU is sitting at around the 60 watts here. And no, right now we're already dropping to 20 watts here. So yeah, the card is definitely struggling quite a lot in this benchmark. And I think if you look at the top left corner, that may have to do more with the fact that our VRAM is completely maxed out as compared to the fact that our rasterization performance is actually that terrible. But obviously it could be both here. I mean, it's really interesting to me to see how the GPU is spiking between 45 watts and 20 watts, somewhere around that. I mean, 47 watts, which is quite a lot for such a small little machine here. So let's go ahead and see what results we're getting here. And that is quite a low score. Like, that is very, very low. I think the RTX 1000 ADA generation was able to get around 1800 points here. And yeah, so I don't think the RTX 1000 ADA actually is that much faster in rasterization performance. So I really attribute this low score to the 4 GB of VRAM this card here is. So the Time Spy benchmark is probably going to be more representative of what this card is actually capable of doing, even though it's obviously a good idea to keep in mind the limitations of the VRAM due to the fact that obviously modern titles will often require more than 4 GB of VRAM, even at medium settings at 1080p. So if you want to play with this card and with the RTX 3050 and even the 3050 Ti for that matter, you really have to consider if it's worth sticking to 4 GB of VRAM in 2025, because that really can be problematic in a lot of titles now. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and see how Time Spy is going to run and how much that is. I don't really think VRAM is going to affect any performance here at all, but yeah, we will just see that in a few seconds when it's loading. And yeah, we're also skipping the demo before that, because that's really not necessary to look at, because obviously there won't be any performance metrics measured there, and it's really just for systems to heat up before. But yeah, and as you can see, our CPU is actually running pretty hot here and running at 50 watts for some reason. I really don't know why it's actually running with these high wattages here, because the early tests or the graphic tests from Time Spy are actually really not that CPU intensive. But you can see that we're also clocking at 4.8 gigahertz, which is probably the reason why it's being that hot. Really interesting to me. But as long as we are seeing the 35 watt power limit or power target on the GPU, which really is the specified one, which we should be able to achieve here, then I don't really think that's a problem. But yeah, it's nice to see that we are able to see around 60 watts of power output here from the system, which is a little bit lower than a Dell XPS 15 was able to deliver from 2019, which I had before. But it's also, I think, higher than what the Dell XPS 2024 model is actually able to deliver. So that's not a bad result here, especially considering that the Dell Precision 5470 for a 14-inch machine is much smaller than the 15-inch one. And even obviously now it's a Dell XPS 16, which again is even worse because it has an even bigger footprint. And yeah, on the other hand, it's also really interesting to me that the fans of the Dell Precision 5470 are very, very conservative. Like Dell could easily have gotten like a better performance and I think 40 to 45 watts on the GPU if they just ramped up the fans or allowed the machine to ramp up the fans consistently. But it's really a pretty quiet laptop. And I mean, obviously in a work environment that's nice, but just with the Lenovo T480, which I've tested earlier, which was throttling pretty heavily, which obviously this one doesn't here, but it was throttling due to the fact that it simply was a quiet laptop, which for once did not ramp up the fan which it had, and at the same time, it was also keeping the laptop very cool at around I think 60 degrees. So yeah, if they would allow the user to make the decision if they want to have the performance as compared to the lower noise levels and temperature levels, that would be really appreciated. But yeah, I'm really curious to find out what score we're gonna get here. I mean, I'm thinking really it should be around 3,500 to 4,000 points. So as compared to the 8,000 points that the RTX 1000 ADA generation is getting here. So really around half the performance of that, which really speaks for the impressive performance gains which the ADA generation has done or has managed to achieve. So let's go ahead and see. I mean, obviously you have to also 4,000 points. So yeah, that's around that sounds about right. But yeah, 3,700 here. I think it was over 8,000 for the ADA generation GPU. Yeah, that's really interesting to me because obviously the RTX 1000 ADA was running at around 90 watts versus this one here with 35 watts. So obviously you have a lot more power draw. So efficiency wise, I don't really know if that's actually that much of a leap as compared to this generation, but yeah, the performance really speaks for itself. And with the 6 gigabytes of VRAM, it was also able to achieve a lot higher or a lot more points and a higher score in the Steel Nomad benchmark as well.